Hello, 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 and welcome to Unique Leaders Live. I'm Megan DiMartino, and it is Friday, my favorite day of the week. Not because it's Friday or the weekend, but because it's Unique Leaders Live and podcast. I am so excited to have you meet my guest today, Sue Phillips. But before we bring Sue in, I'd like to share a little bit about Unique Leaders Live. Unique Leaders Live is a live on YouTube, but also on all the podcasting platforms. So I really ask you a favor to share this out to all of your social media platforms, because there will be so many things that Sue shares about her life and that evolution that will touch so many people. So it would be a blessing for others to hear Sue's story. So share this out right now on all your social media, and it is on YouTube. So do subscribe to it, to the Unique Leaders Live page. You can always go back and watch and listen also to Sue and to her stories, but also the other amazing people that are on Unique Leaders Live on YouTube. And then on Tuesday, it will be a podcast on all the podcasting platforms. So then go to iTunes and please share a review, because it does help others find us. And so with that bottom line is what Unique Leaders is. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Miss Sue Phillips.
Hello, Megan. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you, Sue, for joining me. I know you're a busy, busy lady and doing so many different projects and travel, and it's very exciting to hear what you are doing. But I have the joy of knowing you a bit and knowing a bit about your story. But that story of yours is very compelling, and it shows true hope and infinite possibilities just over the horizon. That's the title of my book, Hope and Possibilities. And it's never too early or too late to create the life of your dreams. And you are a true hope and possibilities girl and a unique leader. So with that said, would you share with our guests where you were born, a little bit about that period of your life, and how that evolved to where you are today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and just thrilled that you invited me. So thank you. So you can tell from my accent that I have an accent. I'm originally from South Africa. Now, interestingly enough, so many Americans don't know the difference between South African, Australian, and English accents. And I will share with you that I was an actress at 10 years old. And I always like to put sort of a little acting gig together with my interviews. So the difference between English, Australian, and South African accents are: English are very, very British and very, very proper and very, very clipped and very, very pronounced. Australians are very broad and very wide. And South Africans are very, very flat.
That in itself is worth the price of admission. Just there to introduce to all of us, not knowing any of that, had no idea. I mean, from my ear, I hear what you're saying, so to speak, but that's fabulous information. So do go on, my dear.
So at 10 years old, my mother knew a very big TV theatrical producer. My mother was an amazing artist and a calligraphist, and so she was involved in those circles. And so the producer, Toby Kushlik, said to my mother, "Grace, we are looking for a 10-year-old daughter, and I know you have a daughter who's 10 years old. We'd like her to audition." So I did, and the play was a British comedy called Roar Like a Dove. And it was a fun lovely, fun comedy. But because I was 10 years old, they had to have 2 other alternate young girls because we were at school. So I got the acting bug. And it was really interesting. It was like a Broadway type production, and it was on for 3 months, but I was still at school, so we had to alternate with the other 2 girls. And that solidified my acting love. And I was a singer. My mother was a musician, so I got my musical talents from her. So I started to sing and act, and went to University of Cape Town to study speech and drama. And along the way, I always felt that I wanted to go to London to study. And one summer when I was 20, I went to RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. In London, I got an audition. And it was just wonderful, but it was so competitive and so difficult. And I'd never really had acting lessons. So I didn't get in. But on the way back from London, I came to New York to see my brother. And that got me the bug to come to America. So I landed up in America.
Wow. And so what year would that have been, Sue, when you came to the States?
Well, I came up for the first time. Let's see. Well, I came on a visit in early 1970s. And then I came to live here in 77. Yes, and it was just America was so, and I lived in New York, and New York was just so bright and happy and full of energy and full of light, and so I thought that I really wanted to come and live in America.
Yeah, I asked that only because I was born on Long Island and outside of the city, and so I spent a lot of time, and not only as a kid, my parents took us into the city all the time, but also as a young adult and worked in the city. And so New York City has been a centrifugal force I call it to my DNA,
Yes,
who I am. So I asked the years because New York has had its own evolution. And in the 70s, New York was, and I feel anyway, that it was in a period of its own evolution. It really was a new beginning of New York. So that was a great time to come to New York City.
Well, it was interesting because it was a time when, I loved going to theater, but you couldn't really stay at night in the theater in Times Square because it was just not safe. Exactly. And it was so funny. I was walking home last night. I went to a SAG screening, Screen Actors Guild, because I'm a member of Screen Actors Guild. And I was walking past from the boathouse back home. And I thought, how wonderful to be in New York City and being able to walk alone and on a beautiful evening, no cold, no rain, and it was just a lovely feeling that I was able to walk here safely and calmly,
Yes, exactly. Because truly, I shared the story about how I, and this would have been in the early 70s, really more 70s to 72. I worked at Lord & Taylor, and I, though was married, and I lived in Westchester County. So I took the train from Grand Central, and just walking from 36th Street to 42nd in Grand Central was not a good.
Not a good idea for a young
not at that time. No. So it was in its beginning to grow out of that phase. So yes. So you came in the late 70s. So
because I always had a love of theater, I landed up starting to try and audition for roles and so on, but I didn't have a membership to the Screen Actors Guild, and I wasn't a citizen. And a friend of mine said to me, well, I'll introduce you to an immigration attorney. So I went to the immigration attorney, and he said, what do you do? I said, I'm a singer and actress. He said, forget that. He said, we have 20,000 out of work singers and actresses. What else do you do? And I remember the words my mother had said to me. She said, if you're going to be in theater, you have something to fall back on. And I remember that. And I'd actually, along the way, while I was studying and acting and singing, I had done a secretarial course, shorthand and typing. In those days, there was shorthand. Nobody knows what shorthand is today. And so the immigration said to me, so what else do you do? I said, well, I can type and I can do shorthand. He said, were you any good? And I knew that that was my ticket into America. I said, yes, I was great. He said, really? I said, yes. He said, all right, I'm looking for an assistant in my legal practice. When can you start? On Monday? I said, no. I have to do a refresher course. I said, I'll tell you what. Let me go and sign up with a refresher course at a sort of an executive secretarial school, and I'll see you in 2 weeks, which I did. And I landed up working for him. I got my green card 7 months after I joined him. At night, I would still sing and act, but I had told him that I would stay for a year. So I committed myself to the year. At the end of that year, I landed up getting my week's vacation, and I went to various headhunters, and I landed up with 3 job offers in 1 week, which is extraordinary.
Really?
One was to work in a bank. I'll never forget, the gentleman was some big wig in the bank, and he loved my entrepreneurial spirit, and I didn't think banking was for me. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. The second position was to work in the fashion world of Pierre Cardin, and I didn't feel at that time that I knew enough about fashion. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. The third job offer was to be the executive assistant and training director for Elizabeth Arden. And I said, Elizabeth Arden, color, cosmetics, beauty industry, yes. And I got the job, and that what they loved about me was the fact that I could stand up in front of people and speak, because they were looking for somebody to motivate the people behind the counter. And that was my foray into the beauty business. And I landed up, they wanted me to be the national training director for fragrance. And so as part of my orientation and training, the president said, I want you to go to Macy's and stand and learn and become involved and understand who the customer is and learn about the product. And I said, Macy's? I'm a college graduate. That's not for me. Anyway, he said to me, it'll be the best experience you ever have. You're learning about the product and speaking to the people and understanding the customer. And it was, and I did, and I was there for 3 months. And then I started my travels around America as the national training director for Elizabeth Arden. And I traveled all around the country, and it was an amazing way for me to experience the different regional differences and cultural differences. New York is not Washington, is not New Orleans, is not California, the West Coast, East Coast. So it was great. And every time I was in a school and I did these training seminars, I would always have beautiful music playing. I'd have beautiful images of the fragrance. I would have the fragrance sprayed in the air, so that when the beauty advisors from the stores would come into my fragrance room, they would experience this beautiful ambiance. And every time I left the market and I went to another market to do another training, sales were spiked way high. So I must have done something right, because sales were good. And eventually they promoted me to product development, into color cosmetics, and then into marketing. And then Lancôme hired me as marketing director for fragrance and men's skincare. I was there for 4 years. And all the time I would sing and act at night and try and do some things. By this stage, my business life was really becoming a little bit more solidified, and I didn't have a lot of time. And then after 4 years, I got a call from a headhunter to interview with Tiffany, to be the vice president of Tiffany and develop the Tiffany fragrance. And I did, and it was amazing. And so if you'd have told me growing up in South Africa that I would one day be vice president of fragrance of Tiffany and develop this iconic Tiffany fragrance, I'd say it's not possible. But
I want to break something down, because one of the things that and I didn't say this in my intro, and I normally do, but that, you've heard this saying that success leaves clues. But, I don't want clues. I want the whole piece, because I want people to see that essence of you and what you've done. And so you are a true depiction of creativity, but not in this typical sense. Yes, you are that, but creativity, like thinking on your feet when the attorney, the immigration attorney asked you, what else do you do? So you were creative in that. You thought on your feet, and because you knew you needed to stay, but you needed that job. And so then you took the training. You didn't just say, well, I don't know. where a lot of people would have done that, Sue, but you had the, drive and sense to do that. And number two is when you said to the director, or the executive for Elizabeth Arden, well, I'm a college graduate, but he understood that the pulse of you would resonate with interfacing with people. Our one of the things that is so attractive to me about you is we have so many similar things, because that is one of the things I did in my early career, is what you just said. It differently, but it was working with the companies and then working with interfacing with the consumer and tying the information back in a training position for the company. So
That's so great. I didn't know that.
yes, that was my early career. Yes, in initially Lord and Taylor, and then really Bloomingdale's is what where I did that for. But with a line from London, I'm sure you know Biba Cosmetics.
Oh, loved Biba.
and,
Oh, in the
and
70s,
so
Biba was
yes.
everything.
So when Bloomies brought Biba in, and this was in the mid 70s, they had an exclusive contract and they brought it into the Biba stores. And so I did exactly what you just shared with them. And that was very, very revolutionary, because they put it in the junior department, not in the cosmetic department.
Yeah.
On the main floor. So that was very unique itself. So anyhow, but the point, I wanted to share this with our guests, because you, took those pieces of, and again, coming to a foreign country, so to speak, even though your brother was here, you knew what you wanted. And one was the theater, but then you tied it together with growing. So the other thing I want you to share with our guests is, because I have heard you share this, that the headhunter was Brooke Shields' dad.
Yes. So when I was at Lancôme and I got a call from Frank Shields to go to, for the Tiffany interview, I was astounded. Well, at that time, Brooke was a young girl. I mean, she was just starting in her career. Mm-hmm. But he was this amazing, tall, very handsome man. That's where she gets her looks from. I know her mom was very good looking too, but he was so tall. And I met with him. And he was the headhunter at the time, and had heard about me and had done his research and thought that I'd be the right candidate for Tiffany. And so it was wonderful to meet him and, of course, land up at Tiffany.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful experience. And so do share about that, because that itself, again, it shows so much about your creativity, but also your perception of reading the situation and taking it to a different place.
So the Tiffany story is a really interesting story. It was just so exciting. And I will give you a shortened version of what happened. So the day that I got the job interview, my boss at the time had given me 2 submissions. She said, Sue, we've been working on these fragrances for the last year and a half, almost 2 years. This is it. And I think she hired me in January, and the launch of the new fragrance was going to be in September. So there were 9 months to go. And she said, go ahead and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Go and resign from Lancôme, which, I had to do. And then I'll see you in 2 weeks. Well, I got the fragrances and I was so excited. I wasn't even out the door yet. I was in the elevator and I started to spray. And I said, no, this can't be. Anyway, long story short, I didn't feel that there were the right submissions for Tiffany. And I actually told her, I decided that this was not my subjective opinion, but I really needed to get some feedback from people whose opinions I trusted. So I contacted perfumers and CEOs of companies while I was still at Lancôme and trying to, end my commitment there. But I said to people, look, I'd love you to try something. This is very hush-hush. I didn't tell them who it was for, what it was for. I said, I'm working on a project and I'd love your professional expertise and your thoughts about these 2 fragrances. Anyway, the overall response was cheap, chemical, commercial, not so good. Anyway, long story short, I contacted my future boss and I said, I'd love to come and see you. And she said, but you're going to start in just a week or so. I said, well, it's really important. And I decided that, by this stage, they had hired me and I would do one of 2 things. Either say to her, look, whatever you want to do is fine with me. I know you've been working on this for a long time with some different consultants, but if you are committed to either one of these, fragrances, that's fine. If not, I just want you to know, I don't think they're correct for Tiffany, the quality. And I explained to her what I'd done. She said, well, let's go and see the chairman. We marched down to the chairman's office, she said, and to her credit, she said, Sue doesn't think these are the right submissions. He said, well, we hired her, let her fix it. And that was my answer to, so at that time, I started my career at Tiffany, and I worked with we had done a joint venture with Chanel, and we spoke to the chairman of Chanel and the president, and they all agreed that Sue had to go to Paris to work with the chief perfumer of Chanel to work on and get the right submission for Tiffany. And that's what happened. And it was just extraordinary working with the Chanel chief perfumer and going to the Chanel atelier. He took me on a private tour to Coco Chanel's apartment in Paris, and it was just amazing to see those beautiful Coromandel screens and all the little objets d'art that was on her coffee table, and walking in the footsteps and walking in the ambiance of Coco Chanel was an experience I'll never forget.
Really? Oh, wow. That, just again, from that evolution to Coco Chanel's apartment, it just is just a wonderful, wonderful, exploration of life. Really, isn't that what life is about? Is just continuing to evolve. Just amazing.
To continue to evolve, and also at that point, then I started to really feel that I had something to offer. That I had belief in my ability, which sometimes in life you just don't feel that you can own that.
That's right.
And I think that's also part of maturing and part of understanding who you are, what your strengths are, and what your weaknesses are. And I really felt very committed to having the right quality and the right product. And if I didn't feel that it was right, at least I had to say it and I had to communicate that.
Yes.
And, then it was up to them if they wanted me to continue or not. But I felt from a professional standpoint that if in my feeling, I didn't feel that it was the right product and quality, then I felt it was incumbent upon me to say something. And then management will say, okay, move ahead or don't.
And that's also, like you said, incumbent upon you, because if you had said to yourself, who am I to speak to this woman who had been working on this for a year and a half, but you knew from your own integrity place that you had to. And so it was really not only a wise decision, but therefore your relationship with them was built on a solid place, not on fear, let's just say. So you continued on with Tiffany.
Yes, I continued with Tiffany. Oh gosh, something's going on here. Can you see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, so then I continued with Tiffany, and then I had my daughter, and I left Tiffany to have my daughter, and I started my own consulting company, which I called Centerprises. And that was just wonderful in terms of really understanding. I'm so sorry. There's something going on with my screen, and I've lost you. I can't see you, so I'm trying to find you on my screen.
But well, we hear and see you well.
Okay, perfectly. All right.
Yeah.
So I started my company called Centerprises, and this was a consulting global consulting company. I just felt that I didn't want to basically not be I wanted to be a mom, but I wanted to continue my career. And so I did. And I was hired to be the general manager for fragrance for Burberry. So I created the fragrance for Burberry, and then Trish McEvoy and Avon and Lancaster. And throughout the 80s and the early 90s, things were amazing and business was great. As we know, business was great in the 80s and the 90s. And then suddenly in 2008, there was a crash in the economy. And again, I had to think, what do I do now? Because everything that I was working on had basically fallen to pieces, that everything had stopped consulting had died down. And by this stage, I had learned so much about fragrance, and I felt that I knew what the next trend would be, which was all about personalization. And again, through just serendipity, I landed up opening up a little perfume studio downtown in Tribeca, which I called the Centenarium. And people said to me, Sue, what are you doing? Tupperware parties for perfume? And they laughed. And as we know now, personalization is one of the biggest trends.
Yeah.
And so it was wonderful that I was able to suddenly inspire people to think about creating a custom fragrance, creating their own fragrance. We did corporate events, team building events. I had celebrities like Jamie Foxx, Katie Holmes, Zendaya, all meet with me down at my studio. They heard about me. And to me, it was all about creating a beautiful experience and a fragrance that reflected their individuality and their personality. And at that point, you know, the fragrance heretofore had been celebrity fragrances, designer fragrances, and now suddenly it was all about the individual.
Yes.
And personalization became very important. So there's a British term called bespoke, and not too many people in America knew the term bespoke. It was really basically a British term that referred to clothing, usually men's tailoring. And it was all about a personalized outfit and personalized clothing, which was the whole term bespoke is personalization, reflecting your individuality, and custom made clothing. And I thought, well, why not take that idea and turn it into custom made fragrances? So I spent the next few years developing fragrances that I felt reflected the entire fragrance palette. And I created these custom fragrances, and it became really successful and people loved it. And then guess what, Megan? We had another issue. 2008 happened. And that was all about, you know, the economy coming to a standstill. And then I had to figure out, and then, of course, we had COVID in 2020 or 2019. So I had to leave my studio downtown in Tribeca, and they were closing the building and they were renovating the building. And then I moved to the Upper East Side to a pop-up studio in Vanessa Knowles' studio. And while everybody was binging on Netflix, I wrote a book. And I wrote a book called The Power of Perfume.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Before you go on, I just want to clarify or crystallize a point.
Yeah.
When you left Tiffany,
Yes.
so many people, and I'm going to tie it to 2020, so many people who had this plum job and this very, meaning with tremendous notoriety, would have not left. Yes, have a child for sure, but there are many people who have corporate jobs and have children. But you understood that it was time to do your own thing, along with fitting it into your own lifestyle.
Yes.
And that is something that I see people doing today. Like you said, the world shut down in March of 2020. We were told to do it, and we did it. With that said, instead of going dark, so to speak, and watching Netflix, and so you wrote a book. And so, it's just a thread of what you've done throughout your life. You've looked at different dynamics and worked with it and created to your advantage, and not from an ego place, but a life place to create the business and life of your dreams. Go forward.
Well, it's really interesting because when I was in the studio in Tribeca, I had a group of women come in to see me one day, and this was a woman who came with her cohort of ladies, and she wanted to create a fragrance. And while I was creating this fragrance and talking to them, I suddenly stopped. I said, ladies, what is going on? You have these beautiful T-shirts and you have all these marvelous sayings and expressions of validation and positivity. She said, Sue, we're from the Yes Ministry. I said, well, what's the Yes Ministry? She said, it's all about validation and affirmation and positivity. I said, that's fantastic. And they had these beautiful T-shirts, pinks and purples and greens and turquoise with lovely lettering and sayings. She said, do you like what the shirts? I said, yes. She said, well, would you like one? I said, I would love one. She said, what would you like on it? I said, well, I'd love New York City, we're always in black. I'd love a black shirt with gold lettering that says never give up. She said, oh, that's great. So in the mail a week later comes a beautiful black shirt with gold lettering that says don't give up. So I wrote to her and I said, thank you so much for the shirt. It's wonderful, but I really love never give up. She said, no problem. She said, I'll send it to you. So now I have 2 shirts. One says never give up, don't give up, never give up, don't give up. And I think that is actually my mission and my philosophy. I really never give up. And if I can't find one way to a path, I'll navigate my way around and find something else, because what we were going to do and try in the pandemic, I just felt that certainly meeting different people and having big events was not going to happen. Meeting people one-on-one was not going to happen. And then, of course, we started thinking about Zoom. So I wrote my book, and I'm really excited that I did write the book. And it's all about the power of perfume, how to choose it, how to wear it, how to enjoy it. It's not a tome. You don't have to read it, page by page. You can pick it up. There are chapters just about fragrance through the decades, how to wear it, the difference between perfume and eau de parfum, and just, fragrance through the decades, and really an interesting overview about the power of perfume and how important it is.
Now, has it been published?
Oh, yes, it's been published, and it's on Amazon, and it's doing really well. And and then I had another transformative situation happen. And that was because of my book being published. NBC did a story about it, and they said to me the day before the interview, Sue, do you think you can help people who've lost their sense of smell through COVID? I said, I don't know, but we'll try. And they brought in a woman to meet with me, and she had been called a long hauler. She had lost her sense of smell 13 months before and couldn't smell and couldn't taste. And I had no idea that I could actually help her, but through the power of perfume, I took her on a fragrance journey, and I have 18 beautiful perfumes that I've developed. And when we got to the 13th, she suddenly stopped and she got very emotional, and she said, I can smell something and it's beautiful. And she started to tear up and to cry. She had such an emotional reaction, because when you've lost your sense of smell, something just, it's dreadful. And I was able to help her. And so what happened was it went viral. And we had NBC, ABC, Inside Edition, so many publications and news media contacted me. And to date, I've helped about 85 people really regain and rediscover their sense of smell, both in person and on Zoom.
You and I met on an audio app called Clubhouse. And so this is our first personal one-on-one visual.
Right.
But with that said, of course, I've seen you, in your Instagrams and so forth, and likewise, I'm sure. But I did a Clubhouse room for 30 days called 30 Days of Hope.
Yes.
And you came on one day, and you met Regina Fleming, who's a photographer in New York City, but internationally. And Regina said, now this is just audio and your story, but she said, were you on, like you just said about your story on NBC or ABC,
Yes.
And so it's very powerful, very powerful. And you were even on the Jumbotron in Times Square.
Yes. Yes. I'm part of an organization, and they nominated me as best fragrance marketer or top fragrance marketer and top marketing and fragrance professional of the year. And I'm on the billboard in Times Square, which is very exciting and very, very, I'm honored to be there.
I mean, it's, you talk about marketing, you talk about marketing. I don't think you can get any stronger marketing than walking into Times Square and seeing yourself up there. That's very, very exciting. Now, what do you this is November. It's coming to the end of 2021. What are your, vision, so to speak? Because you're a visionary. What do you see going forward?
Well, I really am very excited and very, very motivated to help more people who've lost their sense of smell and ultimately taste. Because, years ago, I was the beauty editor of a magazine and wrote an article about the correlation of smell and taste. And I interviewed a Dr. Robert Henkin. And Dr. Henkin is the head of the Smell and Taste Clinic in Washington, D.C. And at that time, he said to me, Sue, 25 million people a year lose their sense of smell from various accidents, car accidents, pneumonia, viral problems, and so on. And it's not anything that people really thought about. Suddenly, COVID happens, and through this terrible situation of COVID, I was able to help people. COVID really accelerated the awareness of sensory loss of smell and taste. And so I just feel so happy that I've been able to help people. And we actually have put together a little scent kit now for people who can, if they don't want to they don't come to New York to meet with me in person, they can actually meet with me on Zoom.
Wow.
And they can take the scent healing journey, and I can help them. And so what my plans are for the balance of the year are certainly to help more people. I'm going to be on one of the big COVID Facebook groups next week, and there are about 10,000 people who have literally lost their sense of smell and taste. And it is devastating. People lose their quest, their joy, their life, their happiness, because, our sense of smell is our most powerful. And it connects memory and emotions and taste and smell. And so what happens is when people lose their sense of smell, number one, they either try and overeat to compensate to try and smell and taste, or they lose all interest in food because they can't smell or taste. So you have the two extremes, either overeating to try and regain it, or undereating, and they become very upset. And they also sort of retract from society, because everything that revolves around food revolves around social activities. Let's meet for lunch, for breakfast, for tea, and so on. And so I really do want to help more people. And I'm hoping next year I will have some kind of a public platform where I can really talk about fragrance in a very authentic way as well, and reach more people.
As you're speaking, that is exactly what I was thinking about, how God is opening the door for you to share. Fragrance historically has been a luxury, or perceived as a luxury. And that, and I'm talking about back to, Cleopatra and the like. But it is not. It is really part of us. And it is now, with the personalized fragrance, it is really your own personal stamp. And God is going to use you, my friend, to really take this platform and help others, but also to expose your genius and your wonderful work that you've done throughout your career. Wow.
Well, I thank you so much for saying that. I never knew that I would ever be in this position. I would ever be in New York or in the fragrance industry. And I just feel that everything that I've done has sort of led me to this. And I just keep on doing what I love to do. And oh, by the way, along the way, I became the adjunct professor at LIM College and FIT College. And I would tell my students, don't just think about and do things that your parents want you to do. If your parents want you to become a doctor or a lawyer, and that's what they want you to do, and that's not what really makes your heart happy, find something that makes you happy and passionate. And I really believe that it's so important, because, if you love things and you're passionate about it, then, obviously trials and tribulations happen. You're going to have difficulties no matter what you do. So you may as well enjoy what you're doing, and that'll assuage the fact that it's difficult. You just keep on doing what you're doing, and you get through the difficult times because you love what you're doing.
Amen. Amen. That is, again, our connection as well. You know, as the saying goes, it's not what happens to you, it's doing for you,
Right.
because you grow through these experiences. And I did share with you on one of our Clubhouse conversations how I had enrolled in FIT and didn't quite get there, and when I was pregnant. So I would love, love, love to go back someday and speak to these young men and women very much on what you just said, about it's, you know, it's about your dreams, goals, and aspirations, not
Right.
someone else, and to stay with those and focus on those. And like we just said, it's about never stopping. It's about never
Right.
stopping. Because, you know, someone asked me recently, well, aren't you going to retire? And I said, no, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to refire.
Oh,
And
I
so,
love that, Megan. I love that. No, retire is not that's not what we want to do. But I love refire. Oh, that's excellent.
yeah, because you're taking, as you said, Sue, everything that we've done and pull it together and help others. It's
Yes.
truly what a refiring is about. It's crystallizing all we've done and just build upon it. So it's just, I think, a great time to be doing this, because the world is extremely open, because so many people are changing their courses. Would you not agree?
Yes, and think about what COVID has done. So COVID has made us all be very sort of separate. We're in our homes, we're on Zoom, we're in social media, and what oh, there's the phone, we'll just cut it. What has happened with social media is that we've all become a brand. It's how we look, how we sound. We're on Clubhouse, which is wonderful. We're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and it's part of reflecting who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it's a perfect time to really think about one's own brand identity and
Yes.
what you want to do to enhance that for your audience, whether it's your friends, your family, your business constituents, your clients, and to really become as authentic as you can. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this has been a time for really a way of accelerating who we are. And social media gives us a platform. I mean, look at us talking now. It's wonderful. I guess they want to hear me, they want to speak to me, but I can't speak to them right now.
This is, you know, it's all live and it's all natural and it's all good. So no worries about that.
That's fine.
It's just showing that you're in demand, Miss Sue. In demand. Yeah.
Well,
So, well, it's, you know, just again, a joy to have you share your amazing story, your full, rich story. And the other piece to that is that everyone has a story. I
yes.
don't care who you are, what you're doing currently. There is a story that led you to where you are today. And that, again, it's about continuing on. Now, before we close, I
Yes.
ask my guests the same question, Sue. There is a book called 3 Feet from Gold, and it was written by Sharon Lechter and Greg Reed. And Sharon Lechter is, you know, the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, as well as an author in many of the Napoleon Hill Foundation books,
Right.
such as taking Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and converting it for women. She and Greg wrote this several years ago, 10 years ago. It just had its 10th anniversary. And it's basically somewhat autobiographical about Greg Reed's life. But it begins with this guy from the East Coast during the gold rush, and he had gold fever and went west, bought a bit of land and bought his equipment, his hammer and chisel, and started working on finding his gold. And so he would go into town and get his supplies and, you know, complain and moan the blues that he was not finding his gold. And then he finally gave up, Sue, gave up, and
Uh-oh.
sold his property to one of the town guys. And that man, in 3 feet, struck gold.
Wow. Hold on
Okay.
1 second. My battery power. Hold on 1 second. Put it in. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
So Sharon, in this book, created what she calls her success formula. And it's your passion plus talent times association times action plus faith equals success. Now, I'm
Oh,
not going to ask you all of that. But what I ask all of my guests is, what is your passion and what is your talent?
I love that. Gosh. Okay, so what is my passion? Well, my passion is loving what I do. And it's fragrance, but I'm also back doing acting. So I've come full circle. I'm part of an acting group, theater group, every Tuesday that we're on now Zoom. We used to be in person. And I love the fact that I've come full circle, that I'm now really enjoying my passion, my two passions, public speaking, on Zoom, acting, and my fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
My
And your
passion
talent?
and my talent. I think that my talent is really being positive. And it's interesting because I have had many different situations where I've gone through two husbands. I've moved 40 times in 44 years. I've had different jobs, different positions. And I have never, literally never given up. I am so positive. My niece says to me all the time, Sue, I can't believe how positive you are. And I think I get that from my father, who was an amazing man. My mother was incredibly talented and a beautiful woman and a great artist and singer and musician and calligraphist and creative. So I think that my talent is, well, yes, I'm creative, but I'm positive, and I will look for the positive link in anything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And my passions are what I'd love to do, fragrance and theater.
You know, Napoleon Hill's 12 points of wealth, and the number one is a positive mental attitude.
Yeah.
It's the greatest gift. It really is. And that is a wonderful place to end this conversation with Sue. I so appreciate you joining me today and sharing a bit about your life, Sue. So rich, so beautiful. I love listening to you. I love listening to your stories and the essence of you, and start at what you have and don't stop, as they say, but never stop, and just to continue on. And we will meet again, I know, in Clubhouse, and I can't wait to have a visit with you in New York City. And that
I
will
feel the same way. I would love to see you and meet with you in person. And thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to talk to you and to talk to your guests.
Thank you.
I mean, to talk to your
viewers and listeners, but I look at everyone watching and listening as our guests, my guest, your guest in our space, so to speak.
Exactly.
Of life. Yes, I really do. So just stay in the green room for a minute, Sue, and
Sure.
we'll be right back. Thank you so much, dear. Wow. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I truly did. I've met Sue, as I shared, on Clubhouse, the audio app, and she has a few rooms, and then we'll converge in some other rooms. But her stories are so rich and so powerful. But again, about that hope and infinite possibilities, that she's just going to continue on creating and bringing beauty and love to the world. So please do share this out, share it out on all your social media platforms. It will be on replay tomorrow. And again, right now it's on live on YouTube, and next Tuesday it will be on all the podcasting platforms. So have a great opportunity to listen to Sue and her story again, because today in the lives of so many people, regardless of age, are reinventing themselves. And Sue's story is truly about that reinvention of just taking what she loves, her passion, her purpose, and continuing on to do that. I invite you to go to my website, megandimartino.com. I've mentioned my book, Hope and Possibilities. It is there. Just it's a no-charge PDF, and the audiobook is finally available. Talk about acting. That was so fun recording that audiobook. So it is there for you. And I am now starting my program called Propel, and I have a new website, propel.business, and we're doing a conference or a workshop in real time here in Austin, November 22nd. And then from there, the course, Propel, Business and Life Activation, that will help you start, scale, and sustain the business and life of your dreams will be ready to be purchased for you, and then other things from there. So lots going on, lots happening. I'm very excited about all this because, as Sue spoke about, it's really the crystallization of all of my work for the last 40 years. So, and I'm truly excited about sharing it with you. So without that, I will see you, or separate from that, I will see you next Friday on another Unique Leaders Live, and be blessed.